Last episode you saw the grease system come together, a critical piece of equipment for us to be able to move the boat long term and to do multi-hour runs, multi-day tests, that sort of thing. Another really important part of being able to take the boat off the dock is a generator. We don't have enough batteries to run all day without top up, or all night without top up, and we need this genset to be able to run in order to do that. But this is an air-cooled genset. It used to be a gravity-fed fuel tank, so the fuel tank is on the top and the gravity used to deliver the fuel down to the fuel pump. None of those things are happening anymore, so we have to re-engineer the way that this thing actually runs. So that's today's job, getting this thing going.
Brupeg was a sunken fishing trawler that was stripped out and ready for the scrapyard. She's just completed a 10-year rebuild that's brought her back to life. With the help of volunteers and funded by our Patreons, community and subscribers, she'll be crewed by passionate people from around the world. If you'd like to be involved and support the project, please consider joining us on Patreon or subscribe to the channel. There's a link in the description below.
There's 4 jobs that need to be done on this before it's ready to basically sign off. I need to bolt it down to the case, number 1. I need to sort the air cooling out, number 2. I need to get the fuel system sorted, number 3. And I need to get it signed off electrically by our Sparky, number 4. Sometimes I overthink things. So my plan to air cool this air-cooled generator inside a sealed box was to have 2 of these plastic 4-inch flanges, like a bulkhead flange, wall flange, that sort of thing. I was going to drill a hole under the motor and a hole under the alternator, so air rushes in, cold air at the bottom rushes in through these things. And then I was going to use a piece of 4-inch PVC tube. I'm going to mount it in the corner here, so that when the box is on, it's pulling the hot air from the top of the box. Obviously convection, hot air rising. It's all going to be mechanically forced out with this little continuous rated DC bilge blower. So this was going to be pulling air out of the generator. So essentially we're going to be dragging in cold air and pulling out hot air, and there'd be a few sort of connections and U-pieces and whatever involved in that. What I was trying to do is have everything attached to the bottom, the black part of the base, so that the sides can come on and off and there's absolutely nothing connected to them. But I'm really struggling to actually make that work. What I think I might end up doing, put the holes in the bottom like I was originally planning, because I like that. I want to stick with convection, but what I'm thinking is mount this on one of the box covers. I really didn't want to have to do that, but I'm thinking mount this on one of the box covers, probably on the left hand one, because that's the one that's going to come off the least, and it'll have scooped into the box with one of these, so the black joiner connects onto the motor, that there gets permanently mounted into the box, and that's our air extraction system. It's way simpler doing it that way. It's not my ideal, because then obviously you have to unplug that if you ever want to take that side of the engine off or what have you, but I think it's just going to be so much easier. I've got a few days to get this done, so I can't over-engineer this, which is freaking me out. So, speed building of these plumbing fittings. Normally they're designed to be like a male-female slide inside pipe, and you glue them together with a specific cement. We're going to do something different. We're using a rubber connector because we're putting it onto this motor, and I want to be able to take this, replace this if we ever need to, but it's a bit sloppy. You can tighten the crap out of these and probably get it to work, but there's a better way that I've done in the past. Whereas I cut off a little piece, like a strip of the 4-inch tube that we're going to be using. The airflow is going that way, so we need it to connect on the back. So it's still a little bit sloppy, but when I seal that on with like an adhesive, like a Fixtech 190 or a Sicker or something like that, and glue that guy onto there, then fits really snug in there, and you tighten it up, and it's a real beautiful fit. So I've done that a couple of times on these bilge blowers. It works quite well. And all of these parts are really cheap. They're all just like low-cost plumbing parts, glued up. So we'll just let that dry, and then that's going to work really well to connect that onto that rubber coupling. This is the front of the case and this is the back. What I'm thinking is put this bulkhead gasket flange thing, put that in somewhere like that, and then this guy can be going in like that. I'll actually change this and get one that's not female-female. I'll get one that's female-male, because then it'll slide inside this really neatly. So ignore that, but basically I'll put this one something like that, and then have the motor in front of that on some sort of mount. So the motor itself has a couple of little feet that it screws down on, so I'll have to do something up here, some sort of bracket. But yeah, I think we'll do that. We've got plenty of height, like where it sits over in the actual genset area. Got plenty of height. I don't think we're going to have any issue there. Alright, let's drill some holes. Right, using a big chunk of Fixed Tech 190 on this. Yep, they won't come out. Right, while we wait for these two to dry, the flange we just put in, and then that sort of expander piece that we made for that air pump, I'm going to move back over and focus on getting air into the box. So we need to cut some holes on the very bottom of this. Alright, speed is the name of the game. Because I don't have a hole saw that's the right size for those flanges, as you just saw I had to butcher it with the saber saw, what I'm going to do is delete the flanges from this whole setup. I'm going to put 2 holes in just using this hole saw, and that's where my ear is going to come in. It's at the bottom, so it's not perfect. There's a possibility you might get a little bit of fiberglass in your fingers if you start twangling with the holes. Don't twangle with the holes, that's the easiest way to not get fiberglass in your fingers. So I said that I needed to bolt this thing down, so what I've done is disconnected the exhaust at the back, so the engine's now free. I'm going to try and lift it out of this area because it's going to be much easier to work on with the genset gone. I need to drill a couple of big holes. I also need to drill through these timber blocks that you can see down the bottom that we glassed in a while back, because these rubber mounts have a thread on the bottom. So I need a bolt in from the bottom. What I'm actually going to do is use threaded rod. I've got some up on the bench over there. I'm going to put a long threaded rod stud into each of these mounts, poke it through the bottom, and then bolt and washer on the bottom. So it turns out I can't lift it out. Someone put a big box in the way.
So I just dragged the genset back and started drilling the hole that's at the front of the box, closest to the floorboards, which sits right underneath the engine.
While I've got this front end moved, what I might do is drill the 2 holes that I need to bolt the front end of this down, and then we'll do the back end, do exactly the same, but we'll do it in the back end there. That's the standard stud on these mounts, and that's our length adjusted stud. So it's just about a 10mm rod, put a bit of Loctite in there, pop these guys down in the genset, and I reckon we can bolt this thing down. Right, I've mounted it on the front ones that are now being drilled. The back ones are just sitting there, and I've just double checked that my marks are all going to work. I think they're going to be fine. So rip this off now. We've got to try and lift it up and go forward, do exactly the same but in reverse. I've taken off the air cleaner so that we've got a wee bit more clearance against the box of doom up here. But if we can get that to fit, then we don't have to try and drag the whole engine out of the box in order to do the back hole and the bolts for the rear mounts. Yeah, I reckon we can make that work. All drilled. Rear mounts bolted in firmly, one on either side, one over there, one here. Front mounts bolted in firmly, hole drilled at the back. Time to lift this guy back in, see if we can get everything to line up. She's bolted down with ventilation holes. Air cleaner's back on, exhaust is back on. As you know, it's bolted down. I need to start working on the fuel system. So I've got a little 12 volt inline pump and a solenoid valve. I don't have the fittings for these. I can get those tomorrow, or the pipes. But I'm going to start mounting all of this gear so that we can get the fuel system changed over from previously a gravity fed tank to a pressurized fuel pump system. I put a little bit of foam in along the top here, and I had a wee bit of an accident. Insulation foam, like adhesive sticker. It doesn't matter where you're using it, you're going to get it everywhere. I did a run late last night into town and grabbed a different one of these fittings. So previously the fittings, I don't have them to show you, but they had this end on both sides. So this is a female end, this is a male end. It was obviously female. We needed one male end because if you look at the female, it just physically doesn't fit, but the male slides beautifully into that flange gasket. So we can then cement that in. There's like a particular cement that you use to glue these PVC pipes together, and that will be permanently installed in that hole. I just read a comment from Peter Plough of, I think that's how you say his name, I apologise if it's wrong, from the last episode that's just gone out about docking Brupeg, where we're currently sitting right now. He called the manoeuvre smooth, which I thought was a very generous compliment. Thank you, I appreciate that. My ego really likes that. Right, she's fastened in. I haven't glued this end. I've glued the flange, but not the pipe to the flange. I've got our flexi rubber coupling in here. Got rubber mounts down here, so there's about 25mm roughly of rubber mounts. So this is really quite solid. That's not going to go anywhere. I'm not going to glue this just yet. I'm going to sort of assemble the system and make sure everything works first, and then once that's done, I want to glue it, and then I want to trim a little bit of this excess off. I want to have that pretty much flush to get the highest, hottest air possible out of that. So that bit's done for now. Let's start doing the wiring of this and also the fuel plumbing. So probably do the fuel plumbing first, and then we'll do the wiring of the fuel pump and of the air blower in one go. Okay, so the fuel pump, I want to mount it in this clear space directly just down in here, but I can't get a drill down there to drill holes. What I can do is drill one hole and bolt it to the bottom and then drill the second hole, because that will give me my feet spacing for that pump. So I've got both holes drilled. I just need to unbolt that now and bolt it in the correct spot. There you can see it mounted in just underneath the alternator. It gives you an idea where it sits underneath everything, so it's nice and clear, plenty of space. Fuel supply line, we're using a 7.9mm. That's almost certainly going to be an imperial size. That's a weird metric size, but anyway, it's a diesel marine fuel hose, fairly thick. You can kind of see the physical amount of material there on each side. But I'm thinking we'll plug it into the main line over here, because this line here flows miles more than what our main engine needs or you know, justifies. But what we can do is tap into this with a T-fitting right here and run our fuel line across the rib and then up to the generator as well. Fuel pipe's coming along. You can see these pot rivets here. That's P-clamp underneath. You can see the pipe itself swings up over the back and then gets in through there and into the fuel pump itself. Jess has just come down to grab some tools. What are you up to?
Sweating.
It's fucking hot in there, isn't it?
Oh my god.
Yeah.
It's so hot. Looks amazing. So this is your ventilation.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Look at that.
It's pretty neat, eh?
That is very cool.
So these are custom made mounts. They're actually a Yabby pump that's been stripped down. In case any Australians are wondering, hey, I recognise that.
Yeah, that looks awesome.
Yeah. So
Something in the bilge.
something extra in the bilge.
Well, cleaning up the bilge is tomorrow.
Okay, so you can see the stainless T-fitting that I've put in there. Basically breaks the main fuel line and then comes off with this smaller fuel line. Even though they look about the same size, this one is a 1/2 inch fuel line, or 12.75mm. This one here is a 7.9mm fuel line, so it's a fair bit smaller, but it's just a really thick pipe, so quite good from a protection point of view. We've brought it down with a lot of P-clamps so that it's nice and secure. And then under here, look down real close, you can see it skirting along that rib. So it's on the underside of the rib along here where these rivets are, basically, so nothing can hit it. So it's really protected. Now I do need to add a few more up under the bottom. You can see it's just sort of loose at the moment. Got to add a few more in there, but we're getting pretty close. I've got new fuel lines. So I've put the fuel pump down the bottom. Got some new fuel lines connected up here. So one of these is the return. Come around this side maybe. You got the return from the injector, comes around the top and then scoots down over here, and then the actual fuel supply is this big one here. A bit hard to sort of show you on this angle, but the plumbing is physically done and the genset is bolted down. The exhaust is all plumbed back up, so time to start working on electrics now. So we need to get a battery for this as well, so that we can actually fire it up.
Well, good morning, Brupeg. My name is Scott. Day job, I work in IT, and on the weekends I tinker around flying aircraft, amateur radio, all that sort of fun stuff. Also have a keen interest in astronomy and all things associated. We're on a bit of a road trip coming up to help out on Brupeg for a few days, and currently we are driving through some absolutely gorgeous country. It is an absolutely wonderful morning this morning, and we will update you on the way. Here we are, we've just officially crossed the border into Queensland, drawing ever so closer to Brupeg. Trip update for you all. Yes, we have just crossed the council border into the Burnett region, and I must admit the scenery has been absolutely fantastic the whole way. we're drawing ever closer to Brupeg. It's going to be a good few days. Looking forward to it. Alright, see you later. So what we're working on at the moment is we've got all this cabling here, which is sensor wires through the genset, and it's currently running really close to the manifold on the genset. So we don't want this wiring getting too hot when we're underway and using the genset. So what we're going to do is lengthen the cables and then run them underneath the alternator. And if we have a look on the other side of the genset here, they all terminate down into the side of the genset here. So we'll crack on with that. So we've worked out we've got enough length on the cabling down the bottom here, and we're running it underneath the alternator here. So the next step that we've done is we've taken off the wiring here from the solenoid, and we might have enough length on that. If we don't, we're gonna cut and shut. Bear in mind this is just sense wires and things for this on the DC side of the generator. So we'll crack on with that.
The AC connection for this generator was hooked up by our Sparky Diedrich a wee while ago. The thing that we're working on at the moment is all of the DC sensing wires and start cables for the key start that we've moved.
And the final wire we've got to move across the top, because it's still running down near the manifold here, is this brown wire which goes into a red wire which goes into this box here. This one hasn't got any sort of plug or lug that we can remove it from. So yeah, we're going to have to cut and shut this. So we'll crack on with that. The last part of the process is to heat shrink our closures. I've done the other one off camera, but do this one down here. And the last part of this job is to make it all neat and cable tie all the cables together. You know, neat wiring makes it easy to work with, I guess.
G'day, I'm Duncan. Well, we're on another road trip on our way up to Bundaberg to join the team on Brupeg. Julie's got the helm of the car, and we've got about 3.5 hours drive in front of us. I'll be joining the team with Scott already up there, and the idea is that this weekend we'll be starting some sea trials. We'll be going outside the mouth of the river this time, and with some initial testing just to test the basic systems on the boat, and with the goal later on this weekend of going onto anchor for a couple of nights. I'll be looking at the calibration of the Burnett system and just making sure that the sensors and the gauges are saying what they ought to be saying.
So this is all of the DC chaos that's going on at the moment with Dunk and the generator, so the series of Dunk and the generator.
DC and DC.
Yeah. DC universe. What we're doing is basically wiring up so that the fuel pump and the air pump work off the start circuit, so that when we start it, all of those things come alive. So he's been figuring out all the various parts, electronics, relays, etc., what they'll do.
So we've had to extend the cables from the engines with the various sensors. It's got a fuel solenoid, it's got a oil sensor as well. So yeah, it all came up to a dash. That dash has been relocated further away from the engine, so we've had to do an extension loom coming up. So that's been done. But the other thing is the original generator had a fuel tank sitting on top. So that was gravity feed. We don't have that now. We're now drawing feed out of the main tanks within Brupeg. So I've just installed a solenoid. So the idea is when the ignition switch is on, that solenoid will turn on a fuel pump, which Damien installed earlier down underneath there, and also a extractor or blower fan.
That's a blower.
Blower fan.
Yeah.
For a bit of cooling. So this is part of the case that then goes over the other part of the case is sitting down there. So this will all sit within a case. It'll dampen a bit of noise, but also we're ducting some air. So I'm just at the stage of finishing hooking up the solenoid, and then I'll do a test so that when the ignition switch comes on, that the fuel pump runs and then that runs, and actually we're getting pretty close to a test.
Nice. We're up to getting the fuel system working. So we're going to take this line off, turn the key on and let the fuel pump prime fuel through. Then we can start cracking off this line, work the fuel up to the injector, around the corner. Here. Now you can see the old return line, this one just here. Let's see if we can get a close up for you. Just there, you can see we've basically pinched that off and sealed it up. Exactly the same thing around here on this side here. Where are we? That there. That's the old fuel return for the fuel pump. That's been pinched off as well and sealed up. We did that because now we've got a pressurized fuel system. Essentially, it's just going to be pressurizing the return exactly the same as the main feed. And it just added in one more area that we can get leaks and what have you. It was really difficult to get hose clamps on the fuel pump end of it. And the little end, the stubby little end on the injector was tiny, so it was really difficult to get a hose clamps down there. So we thought, just seal them off, they're not needed. We don't necessarily know if it's the right thing to do on this particular engine. We'll find out. If we need to, we'll buy another little fitting and put it in there. But I think we'll be okay. So for now, we're going to prime that fuel system, see if we can get this thing started. So this is our fuel supply line. We're just going to put that in a bottle and see if we can get the fuel to come out. I'll find the key. No, key on. There we go. Sporadic diesel. Okay, I think that's better than before.
Now that we've got that diesel line full of diesel, it's time to connect it back to the injector pump and then start bleeding that injector line.
Okay. Turn it wind over. Good? Yeah, okay.
Now that I can see fuel coming out of that end of the injector line, we tighten it back up and start at the other end.
I don't think I'm getting fuel coming out of this injector pump.
We didn't realise it at the time, but the fuel solenoid valve on this, which is basically a shut-off valve for fuel supply, was very sticky and we couldn't get it to regularly supply fuel to the pump, and that's why we were having trouble getting this started.
Yeah. I don't think we get any fuel. Hey, we did keep it on. Okay, that's fine.
Duncan's testing the solenoid to make sure that we're getting electrical connection through it with his multimeter. And finally we gave up on it and we started pulling it out so that we could figure out how to get a replacement part.
The fuel system is now working, which is awesome. However, the solenoid that lets the fuel into the system is not working, so that's not awesome. So we need to go and solve that, get a new one from in town or bypass it or do something, but we have to basically figure out a way of getting the fuel past this little valve so that we can then get it into the injector. I think it'll run if we do that, because it's a pretty simple engine, but this electric solenoid is stopping the whole process.
We couldn't find a solenoid locally to replace this with, so we've got one in order, but we gave the original a clean up to see if we can make it work. So back to bleeding to get all the air out of the fuel lines. Now that we know that it runs, we turned it off fairly quickly just to do a good quick check over the engine.
Okay, that works.
Once we had a good look over everything, we were happy, we started it up for good and just let it run for a while, which was a sweet little runner.
Jenny's running now, and if I climb down in here, see we've got 230 volts AC, we've got 500 watts coming out of this inverter, we've got 2 kilowatts coming out of that inverter over there. So the generator is supplying the whole boat. So you can see here we've got 26 amps, 88% battery, we've got 29 amps coming into the batteries. We have no shore power, so shore power breaker, doesn't matter what we do there, it's relevant, there is no shore power. Genset, and that's running the whole boat. It's a little single cylinder genset, it doesn't have the box on yet. Out the back, it's pretty bloody noisy. We'll deal with that, that's a problem we can solve.
This generator was the last piece of critical infrastructure that we needed to be able to take the boat off the dock for multi-days at a time. Alright, time to have a bloody good clean up and get this boat away from the dock for a few days.
A big thanks to Trev for donating this generator a few years ago. Thanks Trev, hope you're having a good time sailing.